And we're back once again, only on it's Last Call with the Alcohol, only on the Last Call Podcast.com. And joining me here on location, well, this man has been, usually he's the guy, as we say, is the negative voice of TNA. But now it's a new year, new outlook. He's now the positive guy of TNA. We're trying to figure this out, but he's going to sit down, give us his insights, some thoughts, tell us what's going on with New Year TNA, and break down everything that's happened. That's right. I give you the unofficial president of the Elegance brand. Also, I give you your boy BQ from the BQ Lounge. So, BQ, let's start off here with the good news. That's right. They're all back. We knew M by Elegance, H by Elegance. Now Ash by Elegance is back in the ring. She's now cleared to wrestle. You must be excited. On a serious note, though, like how big is it for TNA just to get her back in the ring?
Man, yeah, I was very excited she's coming back. I don't think the way they've creatively delivered it on screen has been very good, um, but no, I'm glad she's back. And I don't know, whatever she was going through. I mean, good thing it's behind us. It's kind of a bad look in a way, also because several months ago there was tears and there was I'll never wrestle again. I mean, this wasn't like this happening to Soraya or something like that, where she was out for several years. I mean, this was over the course of several months, so it was kind of ridiculous in a sense, the way it all came off. Um, I don't know why she didn't just say she'd be out of action for a little bit, but whatever. It is good to have her back. I think the way they did it on screen is a little corny, but I'm glad to have her back, and glad to see what the three of them, or excited to see what the three of them will do. I think they're taking a step backwards with the Mr. Elegance thing, unfortunately. But other than that, these three can't wait to see what they do.
So regarding her, I was thinking about that. When should they disclose illnesses and injuries? Because we see it in pro sports, like if somebody gets, let's say, a concussion, if they get cancer diagnosis, if they get brain trauma or anything, it's diagnosed. And I get it. It's for betting odds. It's for, gambling odds. Should that be mandatory in pro wrestling? Like, hey, look, this person has suffered this injury. This person has suffered this illness, just so that everybody knows. In the case with Ash, it's not like, well, what's going on? Is she really hurt? Is she really sick? What is she pregnant? What the hell's going on? And we're all left to just let our minds wander, which is never a good thing.
That's kind of touchy. It's touchy to like disclose medical information and put everything out there. And yeah, in sports, it's because of sports betting and all that. I think wrestlers need to like not overreact. Again, we don't know what she went through, so this just consider this a blanket statement. But I think wrestlers need to stop overreacting. There's so many who get online and they're like, I have mental health issues. I'll never wrestle again, or I'm taking time off, or I'm injured. I don't know when I'll be back. And then we see them back a couple months later. Like, so Trey Miguel's an example. I mean, he was just right back. Um, there was another one I was thinking of my Elayna Black. She's another one. I taking a break from wrestling, mental health. A couple months later, she's back. I think wrestlers just have to take a step back sometimes and evaluate things a little bit better. And again, it's more of a blanket statement because I don't know what's going on with Ash, but I think really to disclose that information is probably none of our business. But I sometimes I question the level of professionals they're seeking when they make these decisions, and they're obviously not going to see the same type of physicians that the NBA or the NFL would. I mean, they're probably seeing someone on the level of who I go and see when I go to the doctor. So, but yeah, I think wrestlers need to take a step back sometimes, get off social media, and really get all the facts in line. Or if it's a mental health thing, just take the time off without announcing it. Give yourself a chance. If I got on Twitter every single time I wanted to stop podcasting, I would be tweeting monthly that I'm taking a break or that it's my last year. And I give myself a little time to take a breath to make sure it's really what I want to do, and then then I just go back to what I was doing.
What should they do with her now? Because I know that when she stepped back, the bright side was Layling Lee got to become world champion. Now she's back. I know Danny Luna's right now has a title shot, and you can tell there's probably a lot of people like, oh, do we really want Danny Luna versus Layling Lee? Is it really the greatest thing? I mean, is it what's best for the TNA to grow? For Danny Luna to become champion, or them to put the belt on Ash, who love her, hate her, you pay attention to her. She is somebody who's now become. I can't believe we're saying this. A big star for TNA.
Um, I would say the best thing to do is to start trying to make a star out of Danny Luna. I don't think she's a star. I'll make that very, very clear. I don't think she looks like one. But in a company like TNA, they could make her a pretty big deal and make her a main eventer. Like I don't think she's not like Jordan Grace where they get a load of Jordan Grace and they're like, okay, we need to have you in our company. Like that's not going to happen with her. But at the TNA level, she could be she could be bigger than I think what they were thinking they could accomplish with Masha Slamovich. So I mean, I would invest in her. I had zero interest when she was in Spitfire, and now that she's a solo act, I'm into it. But if I know TNA, and I think I do, they're always going to take the opportunity to push someone who came from WWE over their people. And correct me if I'm wrong. Did she come from like NXT UK or something like
Yeah,
that?
she did. So, and look, I get that point, but when Ash first came here, we were like, okay, let's see what the gimmick does. And as you once called her, Ash by awful sauce, and now it's been like, holy crap, she is TNA. I mean, and I get what you're saying, but for TNA to grow, is Danny Luna the best bet, or should we give it to Ash because look, she can talk, she is over like Rover as the kids say, and she can work and she can actually cut a promo. Like, she is everything. If you want to get more casuals to eyeballs, she's basically who you have as a champion, not somebody like Danny Luna who unfortunately just as you said, doesn't look like a star. She just looks like an indie talent.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just for the quality of the show, um, Danny Luna is what I'm talking about. But if we're talking about uh, the attempt at trying to grab the casual audience, like to me, the Elegance brand is the only thing on the roster that would capture a what is the term? I just said it. A casual fan.
Yeah.
To me, that's it. Um, but I also know TNA, and they stick to the script. I've been saying this for years. They are going to go back to Ash being the champion and feuding with Indy Hartwell like they were trying to do last year. I will bet everything on that. That is what they do. When they have something set in their mind, that, hey, this is the storyline, they do not deviate from that. And if there's a curveball, they will deal with the curveball and then go right back to what they were doing. So there's no doubt in my mind that they're just going to get the title off Laying Lee, which was another attempt at trying to build a star, which I know she came from WWE, but I mean, she's not really known like that. Um, they're going to go this Ash route. There's no doubt in my mind. She's going to feud with Indy Hartwell. She's going to beat Indy Hartwell, and then Indy Hartwell will take the title off her at some point. But no, but to if you want to reach a casual audience at all, like this is your best bet in my opinion. Um, and I think right now fans are so like in this wrestling bubble that they think the casual audience wants to see good ass matches. That's not what they're looking for. The cat like a casual is drawn to the characters, and this is these are the best characters they have in TNA. They are very hit or miss though. I think without Ash, they were more hit than miss. But there's something about when they add. I mean, I love Ash, but there's something about when they add her to the mix that stuff gets really corny, and especially adding Mr. Elegance to the mix. I think Mr. Elegance. I don't think that's going to work out. That's just a gut feeling. I think they're going to roll with this for a couple more months, see that it's a complete bomb. They didn't even bring him onto NXT when Elegance Brand made an appearance, so I think they're going to realize that's a complete bomb here pretty soon.
You mentioned before that there was a slight tease of M by Elegance possibly turning on Ash and Heather. I mean, because you have basically called it. She is the best wrestler in TNA. She is also a star. She has the body of a star. She has the charisma of a star. So we still haven't heard her cut a promo. So if you were in charge of TNA, and they seem to be doing different things, we'll get to that later on. Like how do you start developing her so that she can cut a promo, not have that deer in the headlights look that we've seen a lot of non-WWE, knockouts sort of have when it's like, oh crap, we gotta talk. There's people here. It's live. Oh my God, don't freak out, don't freak out, but I'm really freaking out.
um, Repeat the main
How do
part of the
you
question
get
again.
M by Elegance
Yeah.
ready to cut promos when we've seen with a lot of the indie girls that's not there. They've never done it, so now you're having to almost teach them on the fly.
Yeah, so she can talk. I mean, she's talked a little bit the last few episodes, where it hasn't been a promo necessarily, but she's starting to speak on screen where they didn't talk before. Heather and M were like mute for a really long time, and the personal concierge did all the talking, or Ash did all the talking. And when Ash left, he did all the talking. We don't hear a lot from them. But I've heard her cut like indie promos. She can talk. She's fine. But yeah, I think she's better than Tessa Blanchard, which I've always said Tessa Blanchard's the best female wrestler, but I am like so high up on this girl. And when they brought her on at first with her look and everything, with the curly hair and then just kind of the indie outfit, I was like, I'm not seeing it. Like she wrestled a match on Explosion versus someone. It was a squash match. She was a baby face, and I'm just like, man, I'm not seeing it. But that's part of why wrestlers need characters also. And yeah, I think she's like so good. Every time I see a match, I'm just like everything is smooth and flawless, and like Tessa Blanchard botches. That is the difference. Like if you watch, 10 Tessa Blanchard matches, you're gonna see some good mass wrestling, but you're gonna see botches too. Like that does happen. She's very good at playing off them, a lot better than most wrestlers are, but there's no botches with M by Elegance. Like I think she's so good. But I think that Elegance brand still has a lot of legs left on it. I don't think there's any reason to split them off. But yeah, I did get that vibe that they're almost teasing it. But at the same time, like I said, I don't think they like creatively present the Elegance brand properly sometimes. Like they do a lot of backstage segments and promos where you can just like punch all these holes in it and be like, why didn't they just say it like this? Why did it's there's a lot of the segments seem like they're going up, they are making it up as they go behind the scenes without taking multiple takes, and it just does not come off good. So I feel like what they do is very confusing on screen sometimes. So it's very possible that when I said they were almost teasing the turn, it was probably me reading into it too much.
Well, we did get a heel turn. And once again, this past Thursday night on TNA on Impact, Steve Macklin said his goodbyes. The Feaster fired briefcase. He cut a very emotional promo. It was about the boys in the back, and it wasn't about those suits, and that TNA was a lifeblood. Mike Santana and him, shake hands. And what do we get? We get the return of the angry, evil Steve Macklin jumping Mike Santana, having to be carried out of the arena. For those who worry, like, holy crap, Steve Macklin's actually leaving, you can now be rest assured he ain't leaving. He's coming back. Is this the best thing for TNA and Steve Macklin? For him to be a heel and him to be just sort of this unleashed, very violent and angry guy that when he first came in, that's who he was.
Yeah, man. So I didn't see the episode yet because I never watched live, but I'm kind of aware of what happened. And that's probably the best version of him, but he's also someone I think can do both. I think he was an excellent babyface because he's a badass, and wrestling does not know how to book badasses very well. That's why once upon a time, Stone Cold got over very well because he was a badass, and instead they still kind of they don't do it on the Hulk Hogan level, but they still try to create white meat baby faces, and it that doesn't resonate with anybody. And Steve Macklin was always a badass, whether he was a good guy or a bad guy. So I always felt he can do both. Um, but I do think as a heel, he probably does his best work. So I didn't see exactly what happened. I'm curious to see how it plays out on screen because he was just fired a week ago, and obviously I've never wanted him to be real life fired. But at the same time, if we're trying to protect this fucking feast or fired gimmick, you can't have the dude turn the next week and let us know that he's not going anywhere. That's the weird part of it to me. But I, like I'm talking about being high up on M by Elegance. Like I'm super high up on Steve Macklin. I have been from the very beginning. There's only two times I've been legitimately pissed by TNA booking. It was when Rich Swann dropped the world title to Kenny Omega, and it's when they just so happen to be my two favorite wrestlers. And then Steve Macklin when he dropped the world title to Alex Shelley. Like that one made me so fucking mad. And I always say that I think he's the closest thing to peak EC3. Like when they brought EC3 on Once Upon a Time and created a new character, and you didn't connect him to his WWE character in any way. That's Steve Macklin. It's a completely different gimmick, but that's the closest they've ever come to taking from someone from WWE, completely repackaging him into his own brand and creating a star. So yeah, I never wanted him to leave. I never wanted him to be fired. But for the sake of the fucking gimmick, I mean, come on. They better never do this feast or fired shit again. Because to me, that's just a waste of time. Because now he's just challenging the world champion, so he's going to get a title
He's
shot
not
anyway.
challenging world
So,
champion. It sounds like they're playing it out, so we'll let it slow roll here.
well,
But
sure, sure. I'm getting ahead of myself,
I
but
know it's. But again, is this how good is this for TNA that we keep looking at? Mike Santana's like, all right, who's he gonna feud with? And it's Nick Nemeth is just too obvious. They've done you know, Eddie Edwards. They've done to death, and he's just, as you said, sort of bland. I know you're pitching AJ Francis. That's almost as popular as, hey, let's bring Vince Russo back to TNA. Fans, I think, would just lose their mind, and not in a good way. And
yeah, I agree.
Frankie Kazarian is basically just like eggs, toast, and orange juice. Like, yeah, it's okay, but like even for Mike Santana, like how is this what he needs? A sort of a Steve Macklin type that can bring out the best of him in terms of, oh crap, here is a guy who's almost more violent than I am, more angry than I am, and more just vicious than I am.
Yeah, definitely. Like this feud can be excellent. Like they had gold on their hands with the Steve Macklin Josh Alexander feud, and they didn't do with it what they needed to. And this can be very special. And I mean, you kind of talked about the multiple opponents. TNA usually, over the last several years, is like, hey, this is the guy challenging for the world title. This is the guy challenging for the X Division. They're starting to throw multiple options at somebody. So it's kind of interesting because you've got this layer of, and I don't know how they're bringing this dude back on TV, but you got this layer of, okay, Macklin needs a world title shot ultimately. Here, we're going to try to bring him back. You've got Nick Nemeth with the Collier shot. You've got Eddie Edwards with the Feast or Fire briefcase. There's so many options, and it's very unpredictable. I think that's something that is pretty cool, and they've kind of done that with the Knockouts title as well. I think it's by accident because if you look at the Knockouts picture, it's like, okay, you got Ash here, you got Indy Hartwell here, you got um, Danny Luna here. Like there's all these other, again, that one's by accident because we're talking about Luna's visa issues, Ash coming back out of nowhere. It's by accident. But at the same time, if you look at the titles, it's like, wow, there's all these options and you don't know who's going to win. You don't know who's ultimately going to challenge next and all that. And I think that is cool. It's very, very different. I think WWE did that a lot back in the days. Um, so you didn't everything wasn't so cookie cutter. And right now it's not cookie cutter, so I can dig it.
Should we give TNA credit for this? And also for teasing, hey, Leon Slater is the X Division champion. So we can always use option C. Like they're tying in these, and it's not like big feuds, but all these people like Mike Santana go, oh crap, I gotta watch out for this guy. I gotta watch out for that guy. I gotta watch out for him. And it's like I know we bash on TNA creative as more than say I don't know. Clippers fans bash on ownership for trading away all their players. As I know, I'm hearing this a sore spot with you, but is it time to give TNA creatives actually credit? Like, hey, they are doing something different. They're giving us options and making Mike go, I have no friends because everybody's now gunning for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. They do deserve credit for it because how many champions, and Santana's one of them, who has said, "Now I got a target on my back." And what does that mean if you're just fighting one challenger at a time? But now he legitimately has a target on his back. He has got he has to watch his six. Like there are people gunning at him from all angles now, and that is to me much more entertaining television. So I think they do deserve respect and props for that. It seems like they are making an attempt so far in 2026. We're 4 episodes in, I think, maybe five. I don't know. They, I think four on AMC, and then one that was uh, Access TV. But it seems like this year they are actually making an attempt to write some stories. And I always kind of bring it up that when they had Josh Alexander and Mike Bailey in there, and all those guys knew how to do was wrestle, they started building the company around guys who just had matches, and then those guys left, and they didn't know they were already in that mindset. They didn't know how to go back to let's create characters, create stories. They continue that mindset for a long time. Let's have awesome matches. Let's have long matches where people kick out of everything, and they're starting to get back to what I think the TNA fan base wants from them.
Speaking of the TNA fan base, what we want, fans wanted the righteous. You got the righteous. And there's something off. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just they're not what we're used to in a lot of ways. I mean, you look at them and they are complete characters. They can wrestle, but they are more of the sort of somewhat spooky, supernatural, spooky slash mind sort of, warping characters. They're pairing with the Hardys, so hopefully there's some way they can make this work. How much time do they need? Because I know when they first came in, fans were like, "Yay!" Then all of a sudden, like, "Oh, this isn't that great. These guys are weird." And again, I get it's tough because this has been going back almost since Papa Shango. Pro wrestling, the 80s and 90s and 2000s, they don't really get supernatural gimmicks. It's sort of, for every Undertaker, there's a bunch of like the Fiend, Danhausen, the Wyatt Six, um, Relic that you just look and go, yeah, this is a misfire.
So what I think the problem is with the righteous is that at the beginning, yes, it was like, wow, this is really different. But we're a few weeks into it and we don't know their motivation. And it sounds simple, but that's how you connect with a wrestling audience. If you're just there to be there, why should the people care? I understand they're trying to tell a completely different type of story. They're dragging it out. That's fine. They're not really blowing their load on it real quick. I think this last episode they're saying they wanted a team with them. So, I mean, it's a different story, but at the same time, when you're just talking about basics, the basics of wrestling, what is this person or what is this team's motivation? And if you can't answer that question, we cannot answer that question about these guys. They don't want the belts. They don't want to beat the Hardys. They want to get beat by the Hardys. They want to team with the Hardys. Like nothing makes sense. So I think they're just not connecting right now. That's not to say that this feud might not. It's a long-term story. We can tell it's going somewhere,
Yeah.
but we have no clue where it's going. And while on one hand you don't want things to be obvious, on the second hand you don't want to be confused. And I think people are very confused.
How much of that is writing? And I was thinking about this, because you and I have argued about, oh, they should bring in Hollywood writers, they should bring in TV writers. Can pro wrestling fans deal with that? Because they're used to, hey, it's either crash TV where a lot of stuff happens at once and people go, ooh, ah, or it's very simple, basic storytelling. And, like even a monkey could understand where you're going. For more nuanced, is pro wrestling fans, are they the type that would get this, or is this for them like, yeah, this is like introducing, like five-star cuisine to a toddler and expecting, oh yeah, he'll understand like what quiche is and what, hummus is, and he'll understand what difference is.
Um, I mean, yeah, we've talked about creative a lot, and I've never been shy that I love Vince Russo, and I actually am a big fan of how he books. I know that's not a popular comment, but even though I think his mindset is what's best for wrestling, I think that most wrestling fans we're to the point that they're not used to that anymore. They are used to matches and wrestling for the sake of wrestling and the story the feud being I can beat you, no, I can beat you, or I respect you, well, I respect you, well, let's still wrestle. It's real basic, but in a way that's just very unimaginative. Um, and I mean, yeah, we talk about the Russo and creative a lot when I do your show, and one thing about him is that he was never afraid to throw shit at the wall and see if it stuck. And I'm always saying that with NWA, even though I think NWA has a really bad show, they are not afraid to throw shit at the wall and hey, maybe something sticks here, maybe something hits, maybe we can do this. The bigger companies don't do that. This is the closest thing to it right now with the Righteous, but I don't know if it is creative. I don't know if it's them not knowing what the fuck they're doing. Because I mean, they cut these promos and you don't know what they're saying. They don't. It doesn't make any sense. I hope it makes sense to them. But these seem like creative guys that are probably. I wouldn't say just creative. I would say they're very involved in whatever they're doing. But it's so different for how Delirious and Dreamer usually book and how they usually try to create a storyline and it's probably a different conversation between, you know, they can talk to any wrestler on the roster. The conversation probably goes a lot different when they're talking to these two. So I would say right now, if anything, there's probably just conflicting styles between the two sides, creative and how these guys want to be booked, because nothing makes sense on screen. Not to say it won't eventually, but right now nothing makes sense. So I don't. I would just say it's a conflict between the two rather than saying it's creative. I don't think creative knows what they're doing with guys like this.
Does any creative know what to do with guys like this, or even Danhausen? Because I was seeing when I talk to people online, the AEW Mole, uh, the guys from Toontown Wrestling, like they love Danhausen, they love Bray Wyatt, and you could tell that AEW WWE just had no idea. It's like okay, and it goes back to when Paul Heyman was talking about Raven. Like he and Raven understood what Raven was. Somebody else, they have a completely different idea. They don't get it, and they try to shoehorn it as best as possible. So, is that so, it be, is can the right just survive anywhere? Outside of a Hardy's, because most people in wrestling they're very basic. It's very serious, as you said. Best versus best. I want to beat you. I want to respect you. And this is basically like an acid trip for all these guys. And they're going, yeah, we have no idea how to handle all this.
I missed what the question was and what you said there.
No problem. Does anybody in creative, whether it's here, AEW, WWE, do they know how to handle acts like the Righteous, the Wyatts, Danhausen, or are they just too sort of rigid in this is what pro wrestling is, and this is just very weird?
Yeah, I no, I don't think anyone out there knows how to handle it. But I will say that it works in a smaller company. WWE will never understand how to book that kind of stuff. And this is a really weird thing, but I've always, I don't know, I haven't really said it out loud, but I've always thought that the spookier gimmicks and characters work in small arenas because the presentation doesn't work in a large arena. Like, just take Rosemary's entrance for example, and this is the point I'm trying to make. Rosemary walks a certain way when she comes down to the ring. That only works if you're walking 20 steps. You got to walk an entire entrance ramp like the way WWE has. It's like three times that size. It just doesn't work, and the entrance is such a big part of the character. So that is one area where I think that kind of gimmick just completely falls off the rails in a larger company. The way Abaddon comes to the ring, like she can come down to the ring in Ring of Honor. It's a smaller, more intimate setting. You bring her out there in Dynamite, it does not hit the same. Um, I know that it's the same ring and everything, but I'm just saying in an intimate setting, these kind of characters work. They do not work in a larger setting. It's impossible. I saw an article today of the Wyatt Six is pretty much off television because they have absolutely no idea what they're doing with them. Um, but then you look at someone like Rosemary, who's on the sidelines as well. They bring her out when they're like, "Hey, we need all the knockouts on the show because it's a tournament, it's a battle royal." They have like zero fucking clue how to handle her at this point. She's just she's just on the roster to be on the roster. And no, really, really, no company knows what they're doing with anything like this. And it sucks because they're characters, and we need characters. But when they are the spookier type of character, um, there's a huge disconnect a lot of time in wrestling. But those kind of characters will never work in a bigger company. So this is they try to put the Righteous on AEW television for a little bit. That was right around the end of me watching it, and it didn't work. It didn't click. So hopefully it does click for them here in TNA. But as I said, I think there's a conflict between Dreamer booking garbage matches, Delirious booking good wrestling matches, and then what these guys want to do.
I always hate on-screen GMs or authority powers because usually they're just sort of if they're a babyface, they're bland as hell, or if they're goofy like Santino. And the McMahons sort of ruined it because they were just all the friggin' over it. After a while, you were like, please go home. Just go home for a long time. I love Daria Rae. She is a breath of fresh air for TNA. She understands what she does well, how to deliver it, how to be the, evil authority. Did TNA luck into this? Where you and I have said they want to get rid of Santino, but they really can't. Now they have somebody who can be the anti-Santino, and they can just sort of go, hey, Ava Raine left NXT. Santino, wouldn't you love to go to NXT with your daughter and just hang out? And we're all set here. We got Daria Rae to replace you.
Yeah, man. So I watched very little of her work in WWE, but when I did, I was always very drawn to her. There were people who said she was not good in the ring. I thought she was pretty believable in the ring as far as her looking like she is when she is hitting her moves like they hurt, like they have some kind of impact, like they have some kind of power behind them. So that's what I liked about her. Her she has been great for TNA in my opinion right now. I don't there's probably some people that don't like her, but I think she has been really good. She is not all over the show like Santino. They use her sparingly. She's a lot of it has to do with the knockouts. She's not really messing with the guys at this point, which, a lot of people think that they're just going to send Santino elsewhere and she's going to take over, but she has no interaction with the men. That is one thing that tells me, well, maybe she's just going to be in charge of the knockouts division. They have done that before. They've done authority figures for the knockouts. Um, but the thing is, I don't know what they're doing. It's either going that direction, it's either going the direction of her taking over totally, it's going the direction of Santino probably going over at NXT. And I'm even going to throw a fourth wrinkle in it. It might even be going the direction of Santino turning heel and actually joining up with his daughter on the heel side. I think it might be a small percentage, but I think there's a probability that could happen as well, as far as just because we're so used to knowing how TNA is going to book, just you can see it from a mile away. They've been doing things a little differently this year. So even though on paper it looks like Santino's just going to win the belt, I'm like, well, maybe he joins up with them. I think that's possible. But just to go back to her, I think she's been really good on screen. And I've never really, I know a lot of people don't like authority figures. I always kind of like some kind of matchmaker to be there so that the wrestlers aren't booking themselves. So I'm not someone who's like, oh, I don't want authority figures. I'm okay with one on screen, but a heel one works a little bit better because I mean the Scott D'Amore was the most annoying authority figure on screen that I've seen in a long time because he was always getting one up on the heels. Teddy Long could do it, and Teddy Long, like to me, Teddy Long is a great on-screen guy. He was a babyface. He would get his kind of comeuppance on the heels, but the problem with the thing was not the problem, but the thing where the heels would get one up on him too. Like he was part of storylines. He was part of storylines where he came out on the wrong side, whether he took a shot in the ring or there was the storyline where he was going to marry the girl and then she um, was actually using him because she was with Edge. Like he could look like a fool on screen too. But that is not how Scott D'Amore was booked. Scott D'Amore was never a fool on screen. He always got his comeuppance on the heels, and then we've talked about this before that the faces have their comeuppance on the heels all the time. So it was a bad combination, but the heels need someone on their side in this freaking company. So I think she is. I think she's doing like amazing work from the very beginning that she debuted to when they put her on commentary, when she's on backstage. Like I'm real into everything she's doing.
Does this help them sort of move off from Santino? Because if they've heard people go, we don't like Santino, well, I'm there. And I get it. They're trying to get the casuals. They're trying to build the brand. They're trying to get more people. And look, I get it. Santino is a star. I hate saying that. I personally want to throw up, but I get he's a star. From what you talk to your people, does Daria make it easier for them to go, yeah, it's time to retire Santino. It's time for him to go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've talked about it a little bit. Like I've had the conversations with people over there, and I think they're very aware that the Santino thing has grown old and gotten stale. I think they're very, very aware of that. But once the partnership happened, you can't just take Santino off screen because this fan base that you're trying to attract, they all know who he is. And that's why he's in multiple segments and they find any excuse to play his music and he comes out and um I think the transition is happening. I just don't think they knew how to do it. And I think they have an out here. And she's only signed for like 6 months, but I think she will continue. But they definitely have an out here, and I just don't think they ever knew what the out was. I think I'm sure internally they flirted with Robert Stone doing it. That's why they had him come in for a little bit. I think they were seeing how that got over, which it didn't. And I told people I wouldn't, I have a personal issue with him. I wouldn't
Yes.
watch the show anymore if he was the authority figure. And I was dead serious. I was prepared to cold turkey on TNA. So I think they tried that. I think they probably felt out that the people didn't want it, and this is their this fell into their laps, and I think they've been talking to her for a little while, but I think this kind of fell into their laps, and I think it's going to work.
Speaking of if this will work, Elayna Black. I, I've argued with people, fans of your podcast. Like some will say, "Well, she's not that good." Blah blah blah. I argue, look at her. She's a star. She is somebody who can walk down the street and people go, "Ooh, who the hell is that? Ooh, we got to pay attention. Ooh, she looks like somebody important." She's gotten better. And I know you touched upon that. So, how do they book her without just rushing her? Because she still needs work. She's still a kid compared to a lot of us. So, how do they book her without just ruining it?
They got to find a feud for her that, I mean, they're already teasing her wrestling for the Knockouts title. That's another name I didn't throw in there. So again, they have the male and female champion both have several suitors, several potential contenders. So you just don't know what's next. I do think that is a good thing. Um, but with her, she's definitely not ready yet. We've already seen her challenge for the title on screen, so we cannot rush back into that. I think they have to find a good babyface feud for her. Zaya Brookside would have been perfect, but they already kind of did that when she was part of NXT. The roster is huge, yet I couldn't even tell you who the hell they've been building up for a babyface at the point that they could feud with her. I would say probably their best bet is to try to find a way to create a feud between her and Jody Threat because Jody Threat is a good enough worker that Elayna Black would very much benefit from having a short-term feud with her. And I was very impressed when they brought her on because her promo ability, I want to say her promo ability, but her one promo she cut to me was 1,000 times better than anything she had done when she was on screen before as part of NXT. And then I thought her match was pretty good too. Now she was wrestling Ruthie J, who is very good. You know, they present her as a jobber, but she's good. So I'm sure that didn't hurt. I mean, I remember the time Brandy Rhodes was in TNA and she wrestled Santana Garrett, and Santana Garrett's one of the best fucking workers out there for women and made her look like $1 million. So, maybe it was the opponent, but right now I'm very optimistic for her, and they just got to find the right feud. If they eventually want to put her in the title picture, that's fine, but start it off with the right baby face that she can beat. Um, I think that's Jody Threat. That's like the direction I would go with it. I mean, I can't even think who else they would use, but to me, just Jody would make a lot of sense. But find her the right opponent, find her the right opponents, plural, for a little bit that can help her how to work or help her to work. And when her time comes, she's going to be the Knockouts champion at one point. I am fucking certain of that. But it's not going to be anytime soon because Nash is going to get that belt. They are dying to put the belt on Indy Hartwell. They want to do that more than anything in this world. So it's definitely not her time, but they just got to find her the right stories and the right opponents.
So, how do you? Because I was thinking about that. They have several people that they are high on. We talk about, of course, we'll talk more about, you know, Ash by Elegance. We'll talk more, of course, about Elayna Black. They're high on Mara Jade. They're high on Indy Hartwell. I'm guessing they're still high on Tessa Blanchard because she's probably the most complete package of all the people we mentioned. And then there's like a huge gap between those, let's say six, and everybody else. So how do you do it? I mean, who do you turn face? How do you mix in, Tessa with Ash with Indy? Could there be is there a scenario where Indy doesn't get a title because they're signing better people, and all of a sudden Indy sort of, as Mike like Gilbert says, well, she kind of sucks.
Well, like I always say, and like I've said on this podcast already, they stay the course. and they want that belt on Indy Hartwell. They're going to get it on Indy Hartwell at some point. She already lost, so she's not going to lose another big one. By the time she has to wrestle the big one again, she's going to win. But they want to put that belt on her more than anything, and it's definitely going to happen. But there's definitely a gap because you've got the Diamond Collective, and you're like, what are they? What is their mission? Because they're not wrestling for the tag belts because there's a tag team heel. I mean, the tag team champions are heels, and they're not feuding with anybody. It almost seems like they put the stable together to appease Tessa Blanchard to kind of give her something to do, but she has not feuded with anybody in this company since she feuded with. I don't even think it was a feud with, but yeah, it was with Lang Lee. Now, yeah, she did have one with Jim Miller, but I mean that's kind of different. But as far as someone who can work and who's good, they haven't had anything for Tessa in a really long time. And they put this group together, and she's still doing nothing. I think Cora Jade, or excuse me, Elayna Black would actually be better suited for her stable than Victoria Crawford, but I don't think that's where they're going to go with it. But there is a big gap because you got the ones who are the champions and the ones who are in the title picture, and you can even throw Zaya Brookside in there because she rolls with a champion. And then you've got a gap of the Diamond Collective who are in the middle doing nothing, and then you got another gap of Harley Hudson, Myla Grace, Jada Stone, who are really doing nothing. And I know they used Jada Stone on the episode this week, but there's there's definitely some gaps. They got to find a way to bridge those gaps a little bit so the girls have opponents because there's the division is too big to have so many girls doing nothing. I shouldn't say that. Obviously, because of a larger size, there's a higher chance of them doing nothing. But what I mean is, there's opponents out there for everybody. That's my point,
Yeah.
and they're not finding them.
Well, we actually have a wrestling war we thought was going to happen, didn't think it was going to happen. Now it's actually happening. AEW versus TNA, and it started with the debut episode where TNA's on AMC got panned by the media, aka AEW fan club, and then Tony Khan is all of a sudden signed all the Rascals, then got rid of one for reasons. It has nothing to do with MJF and Alicia Tout. It's reasons. Nothing to do with those two. I've been told by the media. They signed, Jake, Jake something, aka now Jake Doyle. They are now in talks with the inspiration to come over. Well, for all the TNA fans who said, "Oh, AEW fears as well," they actually now do because it seems like Tony is signing anybody that's a free agent or trying to from TNA. Did you ever see this coming, or are you shocked that Tony Khan now just absolutely is afraid of TNA wrestling?
Tony is going to compete with any company that's out there. So he hasn't done it in a while, but Battle of the Belts once upon a time was designed to counter program TNA Plus shows and pay-per-views. Not a lot of people talk about that because TNA is just not the money is not in talking about TNA. I mean, all these big time podcasters and websites, the money is not in TNA. So that isn't something that they have really put out there. But those shows were designed to counter program TNA. So Tony Khan does have an old school mindset that he's going against every other territory. So he's going to take in the opportunity. I don't think he's scared of TNA in any way, but I think if they have talent that's available, I think he's going to get them. I think I think Tony's a fan of every company. He doesn't necessarily say it. I would imagine he is. He's way too much of a wrestling mark to dislike anybody. So he's aware of the talent TNA has, and there is TNA talent or has been TNA talent that can wrestle, put on a good match, especially the type of style that Tony likes. So he's gonna get him. He doesn't know how to say no. He's going to sign everybody. And it's funny because I see the Dynamite graphics on I come across them on Facebook a lot, and even the Collision ones. It's the same people on every show. It's crazy. Like Collision will have a couple like newer faces, but like Dynamite is the same. Like it's the same seven girls every week. And it's the same Death Riders and Don Callis family. Like it's the same people over and over. He has no room, but he doesn't know how to say no. Like he's going to sign everyone that he possibly can. I don't think it is a shot at TNA in any way. Like he's trying to weaken them. I think it's just I see these people at TNA are good. I want them also. I have nothing I can do with them, but I want them. And I don't know. The people are trying to say, oh, TNA versus Collision. Like, I mean, I get it, but Tony is not worried about TNA.
Does this force TNA to look differently, though? Because I know you said in your podcast they're always just waiting for the WWE releases, and usually they would get them. And now, though, with Tony Khan, like if a WWE guy is released, Tony Khan is sprinting, going 6-figure check, 3 years, sign with AEW. You'll be all elite. You'll be great. You'll be great. And unfortunately, he gets them because he spends like a drunken sailor, and in a strip club, just throwing money like crazy. So does TNA have to start looking out the indies because if any WWE guy comes, usually Tony's going to get them.
Yeah, but they just don't. But the thing is also, and this is I'm standing up for TNA here. I mean, who's on the indies?
Yeah.
The indies have dried up significantly with Tony Khan. He took all the big names and he takes the not so big names to where I'm always talking about NWA scouts the indies very, very well. But if you see the wrestlers they're bringing on the show, a lot of them are jabrones. But like there's just not a lot out there on the indies. I think that means you have to work a little harder, scout a little harder, because there are some guys out there, but it's not the same. It's not like several years ago when the indies were a lot were really thriving. Like TNA was not scouting them then, so I don't expect them to scout them now. But where I think they should, I've talked about this a little bit, where I think they should attack is, well, number one, I've said this before. Some of the guys who AEW releases, I'm okay with them bringing them in, and I mean the Bear Bronsons of the world. If they were, if they were able to get like a Scorpio Sky or something, I'd be perfectly fine because it's not WWE. It is still a smaller company we're talking about, and someone like a Scorpio Sky would be big time in TNA. So AEW does have some talent that uh, I'm hoping they can kind of get their hands on one day. But one thing I've talked about very, very little, but I kind of stand by it, is some of these unknowns at WWE releases. They make their cuts from NXT, and it's, hey, we've released 12 wrestlers. You haven't heard of 11 of them. I would see what those guys have and try to create stars out of those guys. Maybe not stars, but you might be able to do something for the X division, bringing in unknowns. Like that is the one area in TNA where you can bring in people no one's ever heard of, and it can work. You can't bring them in and say, hey, we're going to put them in the mid card. Like that's not going to fucking happen. But in the lower card, the X division, take some fucking swings. And as long as these NXT guys that they're releasing have a passion for the business, because obviously they're hiring a lot of football players and male cheerleaders and shit like that. Make sure they have a passion for the business first, but bring in some of these dudes because they had a little training NXT and with their coaches and their system, so they got to have something you can work with to where it's the same thing where you're bringing someone from the WWE system, but at the same time no one's ever heard of them, and they probably look the part because WWE tends to bring in people who look the part where AEW doesn't. So that's just for me. That's an outside of the box scouting thing I would do. Look at the NXT dropouts, and I'm hoping I say this every year, but there's going to be a year where AEW has to start releasing guys,
You
and
say that, but you know what? When you have a billionaire father who just goes, "Yeah, my son's going to inherit it, so I don't give a crap." I've given up. It's like, yeah, Tony. I think if Tony could sign 300 wrestlers, he'd sign 300 wrestlers. They'd be all his buddies. You know what? BQ should be all elite. You can talk AEW, and it'll kill you, I know, but hey, if you can put in your contract, I demand Jaguars versus Chargers tickets every year.
I don't think we ever play the Jags. But yeah, yeah, a lot of the guys he just keeps signing and signing because he really doesn't want them to go anywhere. But I just feel like that time is going to come where some of these guys are big. Okay, I've taken your money. I need to go out and do something, and it's going to help seeing Frankie Kazarian being world champion, Mike Santana becoming world champion, Bear Bronson becoming part of the system. These guys and girls are gonna start looking at that at some point and be like, yo, maybe I can go there and do something rather than sit around. And I think the day is gonna come, but I know that I think every year it's gonna happen, but he just keeps re-signing people. But one of these days, there's no way it makes any financial business sense for him to keep bringing people in or keep signing them that aren't on the show.
I have a theory about that, but we can't go into 2 hour rant about that. So I'll be for a whole different time. But final part of this here, does it hurt that TNA though? Like in the past, you and I talked about, they would sign an Odyssey Jones, they'd sign a Matt Riddle, they'd sign a Killer Cross, and go, all right. Now that they're still doing the talent swap at WWE, they're still on good terms. Does that hurt? Because the only guy they've brought in from a WWE cuts is Cedric Alexander, who had nothing bad to say about WWE. Everybody else, if you had something like even Ridge Holland, you can tell they're steering clear because they don't want to piss off WWE, and also, as Elayna Black said, there's a lot of ex-WWE talent doesn't want to go because they're not sure where WWE starts and TNA ends. Like, does that hurt them?
You're saying does the
Does the
relationship with
close
WWE hurt them?
relationship does that in some ways hurt TNA because they don't want to take on sort of the problem childs, and some talent just don't want to go to TNA because they think, oh, it's just owned by WWE secretly.
I've heard people talk about that. I don't know. Elayna Black was fired from there. I don't think she's trying to go back. I know she has said she was, you know what? Yeah, to rewind it, she said she was a little hesitant to sign with TNA due to the partnership. So, I mean, I'm sure that plays into it a little bit, but right now I look at it as if you're with TNA, you're going to have some extra eyeballs on you from the WWE at this point. So I think that can only help them. But yeah, you brought up like Ridge Holland. Like, yeah, years ago they would have snatched that guy up in a heartbeat. Odyssey Jones would have been world champion in TNA by now. Like, they 100% would have grabbed a dude like that. So I think that they probably do on their side. They're very careful on the guys they look at and bring in because they don't want to piss off WWE. But I don't think there's that many wrestlers who are like, I don't want to be associated with TNA because of their WWE relationship. I don't think that's a thing.
Final topic here is the this is the almost the tastes great less filling. There's a groundswell of people who want to see Mila Grace and Harley Hudson and Jada Stone and Mila Moore and even you want there's a group of people who want to see more of Sinner and Saint. They can't talk. And this is you and I have talked about this. Pro wrestling, casual fans want characters. The hardcore people, they just want wrestling, 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 wrestling. Hey, 30-minute matches, 15-minute matches, 20-minute matches. We're in hog heaven, and other people, the casuals, are like this is kind of boring. So, how does TNA fix that? Like, how do you work with the Sinner, the Saints, the Harley Hudson, um, Mila Grace to get them up to speed where they can cut promos and actually have characters?
Man, it sounds very harsh, but don't sign them if they need that much work. Because they don't have a developmental system. This isn't, they don't have an NXT. Their developmental system is explosion. And I said that's harsh because, I mean, the two girls on screen here, they're beautiful. They're made for television, obviously. And I'm sure they saw that in them. But I was listening to, I'm going to bring up Russo again, but I was listening to Coach and Bro Show, which is my favorite podcast in the world. Jonathan Coachman and Vince Russo. And he was just talking about the amount of people who are on WWE television that still don't have it, that still can't talk, and they've got them learning on the big stage rather than learning before they get there. You know, he's bringing up Raquel Rodriguez for an example. Um, how many are just trying to figure it out on the fly? And Coachman asked him a similar question to what you said, and that's kind of where I got the answer from. He's like, then don't bring them on. Don't if they don't have it, they don't have it. And obviously these two are at the bottom of the roster, these two girls, and maybe we'll get there. But like Sinner and Saint, why did they bring those guys in? I mean, seriously, like I mean they can do some cool stuff in the ring, but you could tell from the day they brought him in to right now, 2 years later, that they don't have it. And you know, they tried to put him with Eric Young. They didn't have it then. The you know, the Josh Alexander thing might have saved them, but he left. But they don't have it. What? Why? You know what I mean? So if you've got someone who's too indie, don't bring him in. Now that contradicts everything I said here of trying to scout the indies and not bringing in people from WWE and all that. But that doesn't mean that there's plenty of people in the indies who know how to talk. They cut promos in this day of social media. They cut promos on their cell phones and post them on social media. There's guys who know how to talk. There's girls who know how to talk. You know, but yeah, I guess I don't understand that. Like if you have someone in and they don't have it, what are we doing? Why do we bring them in? What is the point?
I get why. Because, as you said, how do you develop them then? I mean, unfortunately, you can blame Vince McMahon for this, and now even Tony Khan. They killed the indies, they killed the territories. So you don't have this development. You don't have a lot of schools that teach promo classes. You don't, like, even WWE has trouble now, ever since the passing of the late and legendary Dusty Rhodes, of teaching people, like, how to cut a promo, how to relate, how to, put yourself in a character. So again, I get it. Then how do you do it? I mean, because unfortunately, especially if you're TNA, even AEW and NWA and MLW, you don't have this money. You can just develop people, recruit, let's say, the best actors, giving them, acting classes, or best athletes giving them acting classes, and then go, yeah, we'll let you develop for a couple of years. So again, like you and I see it with Mila Grace and Harley Hudson. They have the look, which is half the battle. How do you even develop them? I mean, if you said if they don't have it, they don't have it. Well, how do you know when? Like a lot of them don't. They just this is the indies where all these indie promotions, it's flippy dippies and hey, we're doing dives, we're doing flips, we're doing all these cool moves and promos. Pfft, screw promos. Let's just wrestle.
See, I don't even think you need acting class. Let's just take someone in the NBA. Um, Once upon a time, Giannis Antetokounmpo needed help on his footwork, so he hired Hakeem Olajuwon. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's guys, I can't hit a free throw. Let me hire Mark Price, or let me hire one of these people, discounted price, a cheap price. They're older, but let me get some one on one. I think there's so many wrestlers out there who can talk, who are retired, that you were booking them. Like it's kind of like, yo, what's your booking fee for the indies? Oh, it's $1,000. You know, how about I hire you for $1,000, um, and you give me some promo classes. You don't have to, sit down with me for an hour. Or if there's someone who's like, oh, my booking fee is $200 an hour. Okay, so let me hire you one hour a month, and let's talk promos. Watch my promos on TV, and let's talk. Like, I think there's so much knowledge out there and people who know how to do it. Like, what the fuck is Greg the Hammer Valentine doing? He's going to every um, uh, convention out there imaginable. But I mean, other than that, he's sitting at home. Like, he can talk. So yeah, maybe he's a little maybe he's a little too old for today's guys, but I mean, there's just so many people out there, that I bet you could book for an hour or book for an hour a month, if the price is right, and say, hey, watch me on TV, help me improve my craft. Like, I've never heard of a story like that of anyone essentially hiring their own coaches. They hire their own trainers so they can do a bunch of moves, but I don't hear of anyone saying, I'm working with this person on my promos. Like, and they're out there, and I'm sure they would love to be a part of that and love to help, because that's one of the disconnects between the old era and the new era, is that the old era is saying, hey, these guys can't talk, there's no characters, they just care about wrestling, and then the younger wrestlers don't like the older wrestlers because they think they're out of touch. Like, obviously there's a huge disconnect, but I mean, there's so many people out there you can just reach out to, just like you go on Fiverr and you're like, hey, I need to learn Spanish. Let me hire a fucking Spanish tutor for nothing. Like, there's people out there. I think they're so concerned about the in-ring portion that everything else is just like secondary to them.
Who could TNA bring in to help them? Like if you were in charge, and as I said, now the TNA is partnering with WWE, there's probably people like who could you see them TNA bring in who A wants to do it, B is especially a female is a good promo was a good promo cutter, and C understands how to talk to people. I mean, it sounds weird, but a lot of these, as you said, a lot of people think Ethan Page is great, and you said, "Oh my God, he is the corniest thing since popcorn." So who would you say is like could teach like Harley Hudson, Myla Grace, Jada Stone how to cut a promo without sound pro wrestling?
Man, that's a good question. Because off the top of my head, it's hard to answer that. But I mean, I would start reaching out to girls who wrestled when the knockouts were really doing something and really popping, and um, they were such a huge part of TNA. It was a completely different era, yes, but I mean, I would, if we're talking about TNA here, I would reach out to the Angelina Loves of the world and ODBs and um, Brooke Tessmacher and freaking girls from that era, to where you're not so disconnected. You're not reaching out to fucking Mae Young, who's I think passed away, but I'm saying like you're not reaching out to uh, you know people who were popping in the 80s or whatever, the 70s. Like, you're still talking to people who are somewhat relevant. Their names are still relevant today. They've moved on, they've retired or whatever, but that it is out there. There are coaches. You can get your own coach specifically for you. They're out there. But if we're talking about the women, I would say, some women who are from when the knockouts division was really popping once upon a time, and say, how did you connect with the audience in the Impact Zone in Orlando, and um, or wherever they were in Tennessee? Like, how did you connect? Like, that's kind of where I would start. Um, People who came and went in TNA, who did it and excelled at it.
Could we, if that's the case, final question, could we see Mickey James return in a backstage role? Because we talked about she connects, whether she was younger, older, she connects. And I get it. Part of it is she's a WWE Hall of Famer and TNA Hall of Famer. She is a singer, an actress. I mean, she has many hats here. Could TNA bring her in and have him like, all right, I'll sit down for maybe once or twice a month and just work with me, Milo Moore, Jada Stone, Harley Hudson, Mila Grace, even Elayna Black, and go, all right, we need to work on the promos because that's what got me over was being a character, not being a wrestler, but being a character.
I almost said the name Mickey James. I don't love her promos to be honest, but I don't know what her connection is, her relationship is with TNA these days. I don't know if it's like strong. I mean, she was. It has to be. She was just wrestling in the company a couple of years ago, but um, I thought she moved on to do OVW. Like I remember that coming out and then never heard anything of it again. And I don't know what the hell she's up to now. But yeah, I mean that's probably someone you look at too. Like I don't think she's ever cut the strongest promos, but again, someone who just came from really establishing the knockouts division. And even some of these guys who established the X division, I mean like, Amazing Red or something, guys like that, if I were Sinner Insane, like I'd be reaching out to dudes like that. I'd be reaching out to guys like Low Key, you know, um, maybe even Homicide. I don't know, like guys who could, who establish characters in their division.
So there you have. We gotta let him go because there's a lot to do, and plus he's getting ready for hopefully, dare I say, a Clippers playoff push. Keeping our fingers crossed. Once again, I give you from the negative BQ show. I give you it's BQ himself. So BQ, where can fans check you out at? Whereas for YouTube, a Twitter, there's probably a Rumble channel. Where can fans hit you up at?
And I don't even know what Rumble is. Yeah, just negative BQ on YouTube, BQ Speaks on Twitter, and that's basically it.
Negative BQ, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, always on a pleasure to have you on the show. We come back. We got a lot more going on here. Only on it's Last Call. Last Call with the alcohol. Only on the Last Call Podcast.com.